Hey everyone, and welcome back. I've been really fortunate recently to get out on site and see some interesting WSUD in action recently. And this is one of those sites that I want to show you around because there is some really curious stuff here. Now it's a very big site, so we're going to go for a wander and I'm going to explain it as we go. So, spin the camera around. First up, over here, we have a whopping great big sediment basin. And if we were to cast our eyes through some, I believe they're culverts underneath here, we can see out the other side the beginnings of an enormous wetland. But we are going to go for a walk this way, and we're going to talk about the system as we go, because it is more than just an enormous wetland. Now the first thing that we're going to see down coming up on our left here in a tick is the high flow bypass. So still at this point, besides being really large, nothing too out of the ordinary here. So we have a high flow bypass. It is coming off sediment pond around there, so water enters the sediment pond. If it's small flows go into the wetland, high flows can bypass down this way. But we are going to go now for a wander through here past the wetland itself. The first thing you might notice that's really nice here is there are great maintenance access tracks. Now by the way, some context here. This site is at Aura, which is the development on the Sunshine Coast. It drains into some particularly sensitive receiving environments. I'll just try and show you a bit of wetland as we go past. Drains into some particularly sensitive receiving environments. So its stormwater treatment objectives are higher than what you would normally see in the state planning policy. I don't remember the specifics, but they're really quite high. So there's a high need here for stormwater treatment to occur. And that's going to explain a bit of what we see in a tick. But right now we can enjoy this nice maintenance access track that allows me to get right around this system really quite easily. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. We've got a choice. Are we going to veer left and keep going around the edge? No, we are not. We are going to come through the center here because this is where we'll see some very curious action start to occur. So you can see coming up here, we've got another weir. And in a tick, you'll be able to see on the left of that weir, we have bioretention basin, very much dominated with blady grass, Imperata cylindrica, but yeah, we have a bioretention system on the left there. Starts just past in this little corner where we were and extends a bit past the weir over here. And it is fed off the wetland via this weir. So when that wetland fills up to a certain height, it starts spilling directly into the bioretention system and can back up to a certain height across both the bioretention and the wetland. And so we're going to keep wandering through. We got very densely vegetated wetland here with a little open water zone there. We're going to keep coming through up and over the weir, and we have another maintenance access path off to the side here, which, as you can see, kind of delineates the edge of the bioretention before the next bioretention cell. There's going to be a pattern emerge here. Bigger one there. Another similar sort of situation. We continue back down the main path here. We've got another weir. And if you're looking ahead in this video, you can see I have many weirs in my future. And so the situation here is, as best I understand it, and this is a site designed by Design Flow, so maybe the crew from Design Flow might be able to fill in a bit more information, but as best as I understand it, because of the high level of treatment required, and because this is in fact treating a very large catchment, so another maintenance access path delineating the next bioretention cell, essentially a very large amount of treatment is required here. And once bioretention gets to a certain size, it needs to be split up into cells. The advice for many years has been, look, once a bioretention system gets to about 800 square meters, it needs to be split into cells. You should put a sediment basin on the front, and direct flows out. I'll just spin around for a sec. Direct flows to the cells from the sediment basin. But that piece of advice kind of had in mind that you might be building 2, 3 800 square meter bioretention basins. But what about if you're building like 8 of them? I actually don't know, I forgot to count how many there are in here, but I think this is my 4th weir. Let's spin back around. 1, 2, 3, yeah, I believe I'm on the 4th weir here. So I assume we're up to about 4 800 square meter bioretention basins. What happens when you are building whatever it is, at least, well, we've got at least 2 more coming, so we're up to at least 6 in a minute, this many systems, you potentially can't feed that many systems off the same sediment basin, because literally you can't get the bioretention to abut the sediment basin. So what do? So in this instance, as I understand it, the design was, well, look, you could make the sediment basin absolutely enormous, right? But that's not a particularly efficient form of treatment. That's kind of some wasted space, really. But what if you turn some of that area into a wetland like this? Now, we have found a little kind of more open water zone here with a little bit less vegetation. I don't know if that's by design or by accident. Although there is a reason that I think it might be by design that we'll come to in a tick. But the point is, if you need to feed an enormous number of bioretention cells off a single sediment basin, then rather than making the sediment basin really big, why don't you make some of that area treatment wetland, and you'll get some better treatment performance out of it. And so that's the, as I understand it, the intent with this site. Sediment basin up the front feeds a wetland, which is doing some treatment, but which allows the perimeter length to feed multiple bioretention cells off it. Now, you might notice that I stopped at this little junction here because we came from Weir City and we were heading this way to Weir City number 2, but we have this maintenance access path off the edge that is wider than the others. Let's wander down here and see what's going on. So we'll wander through, and you might start to notice as we get a little bit further down that there is a pit with a grate on it up here. Now, I'm going to show you some stuff that's going on down in there. Unfortunately, I can't lift it. I don't think it's locked, but it was darn heavy. I couldn't get the thing up, so we're going to have to poke the camera right up against the thing. But in here, it appears to be the structure. I'll come to this one first. The structure controlling levels in the wetland and the like. So what we can see here, hopefully you can still hear me talking here, is water rushing into this via a pipe. Maybe you might get a little there, this could be tricky. And then in the center here, we have some wall type arrangements you might get a little look at there that seem to have some role in controlling water levels back up into the system. And we have a valve here. I'm sorry if you're not seeing a lot, but I can see a little on the screen there, which is currently open and allowing water out. So the takeaway here is that this structure, this is the control structure for, I assume, the wetland water levels. Whether it's also playing a role in anything to do with the bioretention saturated zone, I'm not quite sure. But we have a control structure here, and it is clearly there is a pipe running underneath this maintenance access track, and the maintenance access track is a little bit wider than the other paths between the individual cells. If we start heading back this way, so we are heading back towards the start now. You might remember quite back at the start I had a choice as to whether I was going to go left or right. I chose to go right. This is the path we would have been on if we'd gone left. We come along here, and roughly every cell or so in the back here is a pit, and you may or may not be able to see anything down in there, but the bioretention underdrains appear to connect into it, and a big pipe appears to be flowing, taking water, possibly connecting up all these pits like so. I have not been able to spot any pits out in the bioretention system. I don't quite understand if they're saturated zone systems or not, and if so, how's that's controlled. But this is my understanding with where we are. Now, I'm heading back out the way we came. So past that wetland control pit, back along the wider of the path between some bioretention cells, and I will walk you back out to the other end of the system, just so you can get a complete picture here. So coming along, I'll give you some big high views, hopefully, of the bioretention cells as we go. It's very sunny out here. I can't really see what's a lot on my screen in front of me as I'm walking here. Okay, so we're back to the junction. We're going to continue along further into Weir City. So this is now Weir number 5, like so. I'll keep tracking along. Wetlandy bit there. Now some parts of this wetland must be really quite shallow and even ephemeral, because we've got these really happy Melaleuca communities in it, which I'm quite enjoying. Like that, I do love a good Melaleuca. Okie dokie, Weir number 6 approaching here. Well, there's definitely a different zone in the wetland because the planting community just changed quite abruptly. There, bioretention cells. It's a conversation for another day as to what we think of the Imperata overrunning the system. I definitely prefer that it's in there than it's bare, but me being me, I'd also prefer more trees in the system, for sure. We're number 7. We're getting there. Getting there. Yeah, another one of the, little access tracks down there. We're number 8. We're nearly through. And so what we find when we get down the other end here, and this will explain why the wetland outlet was in the center, is coming up just here, we have another much smaller sediment basin. So this system appears to actually be fed from both ends, and we've got an ability for water to spill over a weir here into this end of the wetland. We're now at the far end here, like so. And I'll just walk us back out, so we have a good concrete maintenance access track coming back up this way, like so. Coming out, in fact, I think we'll see might be a little access on our right down into the sediment basin. So the sediment basin does seem pretty full of sediment, but we do have a concrete maintenance access track down into there. And being a design flow site, I'm pretty certain there'll be a nice hard base on that sediment basin, so that if it does need to be cleaned out, the crew cleaning it out have a good base to dig down to and know when they hit the bottom. And that's this enormous system. So I'm not, there's probably a lot to be debated here as to, the sheer size of it and the like, and I'm not going to pass judgment one way or the other. I just show this because it's interesting. Like, there's been a lot of thought put into this to deal with, okay, if we're going to go this big, how do we resolve some of the challenges associated with that? And whether you like this size or not, I hope you can appreciate the thought that's been put into it. Okay, that's it for now. Have a good one.